Grab a shovel because Assignment Discovery is about to dig into the empires of early Africa.
First, we'll explore how the fertile banks of the Nile gave birth to one of the continent's greatest civilizations in the Nile, where Egypt began.
Then, we'll uncover the tumultuous reign of one famous Egyptian queen, and Nefertiti resurrected.
Next, we'll discover how the Ghana and Mali empires were formed in sub-Saharan survey.
And finally, we'll travel to Timbuktu and see how one African king transformed it into a center for Islamic learning and culture. In Islam Comes to Timbuktu.
Mummies, mysteries, and more coming up next.
As you watch the first half of this program, keep these questions in mind.
Why do civilizations rise near bodies of water?
How do archaeologists learn about the past?
One of the most successful civilizations of the ancient world developed in Egypt. Commerce, agriculture, and art flourished there, and the River Nile was at the heart of it all.
What's the heart of your school?
The assembly area.
Definitely the senior couches. That's where all the activity goes down. The upper commons, lower commons.
Safe room. The entrance. It's like separate from the cafeteria, so it's nice and quiet.
Couches, we always hang out there whenever free time between classes or after school.
For me, it's the attic theater.
The theater.
Probably the lunchroom. To me, the classroom is the most important place.
Throughout history, water has been at the heart of the growth of civilization. And nowhere is this more clear than in Egypt, along the banks of the River Nile. The River Nile flows for 4,000 miles, from the heart of Africa to the Mediterranean Sea, northward. The river floods once a year. Each time, it soaks the desert land of Egypt with water and deposits a layer of rich silt or fine soil. This makes the Nile Valley a good place to grow food and other agricultural goods. But food was not the only thing that sprang up along the Nile. It's also where the Egyptian civilization grew. How did the Nile promote civilization? To control the Nile's annual floods, people cooperated to build dikes and irrigation ditches. These channeled the rising river and helped the people store water for the dry season. People needed to work together to survive. As more and more people moved to the region and worked together, a powerful river civilization emerged. Ancient Egypt was made up of two regions, Upper Egypt in the south and Lower Egypt in the north. Both depended on the river's waters. About 3100 BC, Menes, the king of Upper Egypt, united the two regions. He and his successors used the Nile like a highway between northern and southern Egypt. Officials and armies could get to all the towns along the river to make sure people did what the king wanted. In this way, the Nile helped make Egypt the world's first unified state. But the United States needed a bigger food supply to grow. By irrigating the land around the Nile, the Egyptians grew the food their growing civilization needed. What helped irrigation and farming develop in Egypt? It was the invention of the shadoof. With a bucket at one end and a weight at the other, the shadoof works like a seesaw to raise water from one level to another. Its invention led to a dramatic increase in irrigated land because now people could easily move water where they needed it. The Egyptians also built their civilization with the wealth generated by the Nile. In addition to the food it provided, the Nile also provided transportation. Traders from elsewhere on the continent brought a constant supply of goods down the river. Gold, ivory, ebony, incense, and furs from tropical Africa flooded in to increase the pharaoh's wealth. Egyptian merchants traveled up and down the Nile in sailboats and barges made of papyrus, a riverbank reed that can grow 15 feet tall. Papyrus was also a vehicle for language and ideas. By beating it into flat strips and pressing it together, Egyptians made the first paper. The wealth the Nile provided allowed the Egyptians to build great buildings and monuments. The pyramids of Giza are the largest stone structures ever built. Pyramids were built as majestic tombs for the pharaohs of Egypt. How were these great tombs built? There's a popular idea that slaves built the pyramids, but scientists now think that off-season farmers did the work. Driven from their land by the Nile's annual floods, the farmers were eager to earn a living during the 3 months when their fields were underwater. And they built the pyramids using mud from the Nile. The history of ancient Egypt as a river civilization is tied to the Nile. For 5,000 years, the statues of the pharaohs have stood guard over the river. They are enduring monuments to the river and the civilization it helped create.
Did you know? The Nile stretches for 4,160 miles and passes through 9 countries, making it the longest river in the world. Today, the Nile supports farming in the most densely populated parts of Egypt. Its waters also supply hydroelectric power.
Ancient Egyptians mummified their leaders so that they would continue to thrive in the afterlife. Today, mummies give us clues about the people of this mysterious civilization.
How do people remember their dead?
We honor our dead soldiers by putting up memorials.
I think that pictures are very important, diaries.
I generally remember the good times that we've had with that person.
Well, many people, they create websites for people who were once loved, and they help the country in many ways.
We quote them in our books. We use important speeches that they've given to make new points.
My grandfather passed away a few years ago, and every year on his birthday we get together and we have a dinner to remember him.
I really think that by Memorial Day and just praying for them, we really do remember them.
Legend says Egypt never produced such beauty. Her very name means the perfect one. Her face adorned temples throughout the land. Yet she vanished from history like a mirage. Now, a lone Egyptologist thinks she's made the greatest discovery since King Tut's tomb. In a secret chamber in the Valley of the Kings lie 3 ancient corpses. According to Dr. Joanne Fletcher, one may be none other than Egypt's lost queen, Nefertiti. In a walled-up chamber deep in a tomb, Dr. Joanne Fletcher thinks she's found the missing queen.
To identify a royal mummy as Nefertiti is a very significant find. Very, very significant and extremely important. And I wish her luck.
Dr. Fletcher has mounted the largest scientific expedition in the Valley of the Kings in 25 years. Joining her is a team of experts eager to employ the latest technology to uncover the truth about the mummy thought to be Nefertiti. Can modern science reveal the mummy's secrets? Joanne is entering a tomb called KV-35. One of the deepest and most spectacular tombs in the valley, KV-35 contains 4 side chambers. One of these contains the lost mummy.
So exciting.
Dr. Fletcher is waiting for Dr. Zahi Hawass, Egypt's leading mummy hunter.
Hi, Dr. Hawass. Hello.
Dr. Hawass's official sanction is essential, and the tomb can't be opened without his say-so.
I still can't believe this happened.
Time is short, the work agonizingly slow. The temperature passes 100 degrees Fahrenheit. The humidity 90%. An hour later, and the hole becomes a window. 3 mummies lie within.
And here they all are. Unbelievable.
Thank you.
Can you see them?
Yes, all of them.
Aren't they beautiful?
They are.
Though more than 3,000 years old, they are in good condition. All 3 mummies are unwrapped. This is a major problem in identifying them. Their names would have been written on their bandages.
That's a brilliant mummification job. The embalmers did an excellent job on this lady. Really superb.
One is an old woman. Another, a young man. The third, Fletcher believes, could be Nefertiti. To guard her theory, Dr. Fletcher has spent the last 13 years referring to the mummy as Lady X. She hasn't even told Dr. Hawass who she thinks the mummy is. Can she find enough evidence to prove her own theory? After inspecting the mummies, Dr. Hawass leaves Fletcher to continue her investigation. She has just 2 hours to identify Lady X as Nefertiti. The long neck is a clue. So is the band mark around the head. Beneath her high crown, Nefertiti's head was shaved, a precaution against lice, disease, and the Egyptian heat. Another distinct feature appears in some depictions of Nefertiti: double ear piercing.
And interestingly enough, the left ear has been pierced not once but twice. I'm not aware of any other examples of doubly pierced ears from pharaonic Egypt.
For Fletcher, the double ear piercing is compelling evidence. Damage to the mouth reveals another tantalizing clue.
And then in the middle of all this, all these wonderful clues, you have perhaps the most telling thing of all, you have this terrible malicious damage. But after death, someone hated this woman so much, it appears, that they wanted to literally smash her face in with some kind of blunt instrument. It's just quite amazing. It really is quite extraordinary. I'm, well, almost lost for words.
Fletcher's time is up. The mummies are walled up again.
Sad. They've gone. They've gone away again.
Dr. Fletcher feels her long years of research have finally paid off, yet her quest is far from over. To prove her theory to the world, she must examine the mummy again, this time with the latest technology. But the last team to be granted permission to perform scientific tests on mummies in the Valley of the Kings did so more than a quarter of a century ago. While she waits for permission, Fletcher embarks on an archaeological odyssey in search of the hidden story of Nefertiti's life. Her quest begins on the west bank of the Nile in the ruins of Malkata. At its height, Malkata was the most spectacular palace in ancient Egypt, home of the pharaohs. Fletcher thinks Nefertiti grew up in this sprawling compound, 500 consorts and concubines. The vast harem of Amenhotep III, one of Egypt's greatest pharaohs. Perhaps his chief wife, the formidable Queen T, plucked from this harem a bride for her son.
She would have no doubt had a lot of influence in her son's choice of wife. And I don't think she'd have just selected anybody. It's quite possible that Nefertiti was sort of hand-picked and sort of groomed for this role.
Nefertiti's bond with Queen T might explain why the two mummies were entombed together. The teenage youth between them, thought to be Queen T's eldest son, Tutmosis, plays a crucial role in Nefertiti's childhood. Heir to the throne, Tutmosis dies young, a twist of fate that places Akhenaten and Nefertiti next in line to rule Egypt. But from the day they're crowned, tension is growing with the high priests, guardians of Egypt's most important god. Called the Cult of Amun, their power rivals that of the pharaoh himself.
They were the traditional elite. They were conservative, predominantly male, very set in their ways and very, very rich.
Vowing to curb their power, the royal couple takes the fight to the heart of the Amun cult's power base, the Temple of Karnak. Dr. Fletcher has come to Karnak to uncover evidence of a conflict that would tear Egypt apart, a clash of ideas in which Nefertiti herself would play a leading role. Karnak was built up over generations. By time-honored custom, each pharaoh was expected to dedicate yet more temples to Amun. Akhenaten and his wife broke with tradition and plunged Karnak into chaos. In search of clues, Fletcher climbs a secret passage once used by priests. It leads to the top of a pylon, a traditional gate tower.
Wow. Amazing.
In the distance, 4 gigantic temples once stood. Within, the royal couple worships the new supreme being, the sun god, the Aten. Appointing themselves the Aten's high priest and priestess, the king and queen vow to wrest power from the priests of Amun. Within a few years, the monuments they built to the Aten have eclipsed the old temples of Karnak. To the Amun priests, whose gods and rituals are shrouded in darkness, the Aten temples are sacrilege. Garbed in his ceremonial wig, the high priest of Amun saw the sun temples as blasphemy and a threat to his power.
Around regnal year 5, Akhenaten's been king for 5 years, and there's a very oblique reference in the text which talks about evil words he heard. There was some kind of plot or conspiracy, perhaps. The priests had had enough.
To thwart the conspiracy, the royal couple makes a radical move. They decide to abandon Thebes, capital of Egypt, for hundreds of years. Pharaoh Akhenaten vows to abandon the ancient capital of Thebes and build a new Egypt. 200 miles north of Thebes, it's now called Amarna. Akhenaten picked one of the most remote and inhospitable regions in all Egypt.
He actually announces that he decided to found the city in this spot because Aten, his father, led him to it.
With Nefertiti, Akhenaten began planning a city like no other in Egypt's history, a city designed to venerate the sun, even in the layout of roads and the placement of temples. As Amarna nears completion, the king and queen journey from Thebes to their new home. Built within a few years at lightning speed, Amarna is one of the first planned settlements in history. The royal couple arrives to the acclaim of their subjects, soon to number 50,000. As a sign of the new times, they seem to adopt an informality never before displayed by royalty. Freed from tradition, the royal couple is poised to create a new Egypt. The country hovers on the brink of upheaval.
They'd taken away the traditional gods by year 5, and they'd simply replaced the gods with themselves. The only way, effectively, to reach the art and to reach the gods was through the royal family. You had to worship them, and they would in turn pass on your best wishes to the art.
What began as a utopia turns into a reign of terror. The old gods are brutally swept aside by the new cult of the Aten. Having outlawed thousands of years of tradition, Akhenaten and Nefertiti create a crisis of faith in Egypt.
Akhenaten had taken away people's belief system and given them nothing real in return. And it's also interesting, it's at this point when people are not just shown as bowing to the royal family, but face down in the dirt, grovelling. And I think this is a really disturbing undercurrent.
Egypt lurches into economic crisis and massive social disorder. With the army suppressing dissent at home, Egypt's borders go unguarded. Tablets found in the sands addressed to Akhenaten reveal a country sliding toward catastrophe. Unrepentant, Akhenaten presses on with the transformation of Egypt, no matter the cost.
We can only imagine what Nefertiti must have thought, because she was ever the pragmatist. I don't think Akhenaten would even have noticed or cared. He was such a terrible politician. But Nefertiti, for her, alarm bells must have rung. How can we pull this back? How can we retrieve this situation? It's all starting to fragment.
Egyptologist Dr. Joanne Fletcher has returned to the Valley of the Kings. 6 months ago, she found what could be the mummy of Nefertiti. Now she's back with a team of top British scientists to try and prove it. Not for a quarter of a century has a scientific expedition of this size been allowed in the world's most famous graveyard. It takes 22 porters to carry the delicate equipment down into tomb KV-35. Once again, the wall comes down. Carefully, the team begins unpacking their precious equipment. Forbidden to perform invasive DNA tests, they rely on the latest X-ray technology.
We're aiming at 55 and 12.
The digital imaging equipment will yield X-rays in seconds. A specially designed rig has been built for the examination. It's tense work. One tiny slip could shatter the brittle mummies. Carefully, radiographer Andrea Bates begins the digital scans.
Yes, that's perfect. Yeah, fine.
The X-rays quickly answer one question: the mummy's gender. It's female.
in terms of its skeletal morphology, it's fairly gracile, and I think without any doubt it's female.
Next, they begin scanning the mummy's head and spine.
Okay, that looks good. I think we'll start with that. Okay.
Is this the skull of ancient Egypt's most beautiful woman? These images may hold the answer.
Detail is beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
From them, scientists will attempt to forensically reconstruct Lady X's face. The X-rays also show she still has her brain, a telling clue from mummy chemist Dr. Stephen Buckley. Traditionally, the brain was removed during mummification, but Nefertiti's immediate predecessors broke with custom and kept their brains intact. The X-rays provide Buckley his clue, signs of a distinctive embalming fluid.
So interesting to me are these bits here, these sort of artifacts that are in with the tissue and
what,
the wrappings.
These little
that's right,
white,
looks sort of crystallised. Yeah, that's right.
It shows up as a snowflake effect.
The snowflake effect in the X-rays is very characteristic of the 18th dynasty, and that combined with the very fine quality of embalming and the brain remaining in situ confirmed the late 18th dynasty date for this mummy.
Nefertiti came from the 18th dynasty, an encouraging coincidence. In the Valley of the Kings, the investigation in tomb KV-35 reaches the halfway mark. But a shadow of doubt is cast by Don Brothwell, the team's human remains expert.
It's a youngish individual, late teens to early adult.
You said early adult.
If true, the mummy dubbed Lady X died too young to be Nefertiti. Fletcher won't know for sure until the whole body is X-rayed.
So, ready? X-rays.
After several nail-biting hours, a more encouraging picture slowly emerges.
We're in the thoracic area. There's the top of the pelvis.
So it's
Here are the lumbars. And there's the lower part of the ribs.
Yeah. As the X-rays moved down the body and more details emerged, the radiographers decided that no, this is probably somebody considerably older than this. The long bones had fused, the detail around the pelvis area indicated somebody of greater maturity. So we were looking at someone aged at least 25, possibly as old as 30.
The aging information is fairly good. I could narrow it a wee bit and suggest that maybe it's not quite up to 30, but I wouldn't want to say extend it to 35.
So far, so good. A royal mummy about the right age.
And the skin's... That's incredible.
The next revelation suggests Lady X was more than a queen. It lies in the wrappings, torn from the body by tomb robbers.
This really is royal.
Yes.
Beautiful royal linen. Gorgeous, look how fine that is.
Only for the kings.
Only for the kings, exactly. This is wonderful. What's that? What's under there? The fingers. There are some fingers here. Something under there. This could be the missing arm. Oh, I don't believe it. This is fantastic. Could I? Oh, it's too exciting. Show you. Oh, look at the dust rising up. I don't believe this. This is the arm that's been missing for nearly 100 years.
It's an extraordinary find. 100 years ago, the mummy was found with a bent right arm. Sometime later, it was replaced with a straight arm.
Oh, fantastic. Pumpkin. It was seen in the 1900s and then no one's seen it since.
The newfound limb is a crucial piece of evidence. A bent right arm was the symbol of a pharaoh. The discovery supports the theory that Nefertiti outlived her husband and took the throne herself. a pharaoh in her own right.
We only find this in the art of kings who are buried with the right arm or both arms like this. Queens have the left, kings have that or that. And that really does speak volumes, because if this right arm does belong to the younger woman, then it is evidence that she wielded incredible powers in her life.
Does the bent right arm belong to Lady X? The team undertakes a series of X-rays to find out.
X-rays.
No one can say until the X-rays are meticulously analyzed. Confirmation must wait until the team returns to Britain. The expedition's time is up. Fletcher may never again get this close to the mummy.
I've established in my own mind certainly that this is a royal woman of the late 18th dynasty, potentially a female pharaoh. She's quite incredible, and I certainly think she could well be the great Queen Nefertiti.
Science has solved some of the mysteries surrounding Lady X, but others persist. Joanne Fletcher and her team will use the data they recovered to recreate the mummy's face. A specialist unit based at Nottingham University in England has been selected for the task. They are pioneers in computerized facial reconstruction, more used to working on unidentified murder victims than 3,000-year-old mummies.
When we do any sort of forensic work, we always work as blind as we can. We work with the data we are given and nothing more, which may affect our judgment on that particular case.
The first hurdle, turning X-rays into a three-dimensional computer model of the mummy's skull. It's time-consuming work and requires mapping thousands of points. Once complete, markers are placed on the 3D skull to indicate skin depth. The head is now ready for the complicated task of adding muscle and flesh. Chemist Dr. Stephen Buckley has pieced together the puzzle of Lady X's arm. After analyzing the straight right arm placed beside Lady X's body, he concludes it's not hers.
But it clearly doesn't fit. It's too long, about 2 centimeters too long. Also, the use of the embalming materials is quite different compared to the left arm on Lady X that is still attached to the body. So clearly this cannot belong.
Does the bent right arm found by Fletcher belong to Lady X?
The proportions of the bones is about the right sort of robustness, if you like. And also the coloration on the forearm is similar to that on the left forearm of Lady X that is still attached.
Dr. Fletcher believes the work of the scientists has helped identify a female pharaoh. For her, it can be only one woman. The reconstructed face is almost complete. A computer graphic artist adds features believed to be close to those of the ancient Egyptians. What will the finished face look like? Fletcher's about to find out.
Hello?
The team gathers for the unveiling.
I'm very nervous, but...
Hello, Joanne.
Hiya.
Hello, how are
Hiya. Hello. I'm so looking forward to this.
Go on in.
Brilliant, thank you.
Slowly, the process of creating Lady X's face unfolds before her.
That's incredible. That's absolutely incredible. Oh, it's amazing. She looks such a kind of charismatic figure, very strong, very capable, but perfect. Such a beautiful face.
Next, Nefertiti's characteristic crown and earrings are added. Will life imitate art?
And you can really see what it is the art's trying to put across. Because if this is indeed the face of Nefertiti, then it encapsulates so many of the features that you see in the art.
Gazing upon what she believes to be Nefertiti is a deeply symbolic moment for Dr. Fletcher.
Yeah, that's amazing.
The likeness is uncanny. After her 13-year quest, Fletcher believes she's restored the mummy's identity and given Nefertiti back her name.
Having restored their potential identity is sort of giving them access back into the afterlife. You are restoring their name. To speak the name of the dead is to make them live again. That's what the ancients believed, and in some ways, that's what I believe too.
After more than 3,000 years, the curse on Nefertiti has finally been lifted.
You've been given all the information. Now it's your turn to discuss the questions. Take a moment to talk about the following.
Why do civilizations rise near bodies of water?
How do archaeologists learn about the past?
If you'd like to learn more about what you've just seen, go online or check out these books at your local library.
As you watch the second half of this program, keep these questions in mind.
How can trade affect a growing civilization?
How can wealth help make leaders and their ideas more popular? The gold and salt trade brought the African empires of Ghana and Mali tremendous wealth. But goods weren't the only things that came from these trade routes. Culture, language, religion, and power were also picked up along the way.
Does money bring power?
In our culture, money brings power because people respect people with money more.
You're able to buy influence over people.
Without money, really, you can't get your message across with like the mass media.
I think in a lot of ways money brings power because people like Donald Trump and stuff can affect a lot of different people's lives and jobs simply because they control so much.
I think that people that have more money feel like they have more power, but I don't think that necessarily it's true.
Not all power comes from money because in order to be a king, you need to be a good leader and a strong leader and help your country.
People like Gandhi had a lot of power. Like, people respected him even though he didn't have money. They respected him for like his visions.
Africa is the second largest continent. With more than a fifth of the world's land area, it's a place of great variety. Africa has high plateaus, lush rainforests, rolling grasslands, tall mountains, deep valleys, and harsh deserts. Africa is home to the world's largest desert, the Sahara. This huge expanse of sand and rock forms a divide between the terrain and the people of Africa. Arabs and Berbers live to the north, while the region south of the desert is home to many ethnic groups of Africans with different cultures, languages, and religions. Along the southern edge of the Sahara, the desert gives way to a broad savanna of grasslands dotted with trees. Great herds of animals such as elephants and zebras have roamed the savanna for thousands of years. Two of Africa's greatest kingdoms grew up in West Africa south of the Sahara, along the Niger River in the modern country of Mali. The first of these great trading empires was Ghana. It was founded around AD 300 by a people called the Soninka. They may have been the first West Africans to make iron. Their iron tools and weapons gave them an advantage over other groups in West Africa, whom they conquered to create a strong state, the Kingdom of Ghana. The kings of Ghana built their power on the trade of two key products, gold and salt. Gold was the basis of currency in most parts of the world, and West Africa had lots of it. so Arab and Berber traders from North Africa were willing to risk crossing the Sahara to trade with West Africa. In turn, the West Africans needed salt, which came from mines in the desert. A thriving gold and salt trade developed. Ghana, at the center of the caravan routes, grew rich by taxing the traders and created a great empire. The traders brought more than just salt and other goods. They brought a new religion, Islam. The kings of Ghana welcomed Muslim traders, but they didn't adopt their religion. Instead, they allowed traders to establish their own Muslim trading towns. But around 1050, an extreme Muslim religious movement arose among the desert Arabs. Its followers, called Almoravids, waged war on all non-Muslims. In 1076, they swept into Ghana, capturing its capital and forcing the people of Ghana to convert to Islam or be killed. Almoravid control over Ghana lasted only about 10 years, but the empire never recovered. A new empire soon grew up along the Niger River. A young prince of the Mandinka people, related to the Saninka, took control of the former capital of Ghana in 1235 and established the Empire of Mali. The people of Mali recaptured the gold-producing areas and brought back the profitable trade in gold and salt. Like Ghana before it, Mali became rich, powerful, and the envy of other African nations. Mali's territory expanded north and west of the Atlantic Ocean. By the 14th century, Mali reached its height of power, covering an area about the size of Western Europe. But unlike those in Ghana's empire, the people of Mali accepted Islam. This shared religion gave Mali closer ties to the Muslim cities of North Africa. And as Mali expanded its empire, it helped spread Islam. Cities like Timbuktu, Gao, and Janneh still show signs of the impressive mosques and Islamic learning centers built during Mali's rule. When Mali finally weakened, another empire arose. Centered in the city of Gao, the Songhai Empire also encouraged the spread of Islam across West Africa. The lasting impact of these empires can still be seen today. Millions still speak the languages of Mali and Songhai. Many traditional West African songs, dances, and stories have been passed down for centuries. The marketplaces, first used by gold and salt traders, still bustle with activity. And Islam still lives in these areas, alongside traditional African religions.
Did you know? Mali's ruler, Sundiata, started a cultural exchange program for children of prominent leaders. It required the children to travel to foreign courts to learn about different ways of life. Sundiata hoped this would lead to an understanding of other people and eventually peace.
The Malian king Mansa Musa used his great wealth and power to spread the religion of Islam in his empire and along its trade routes. These religious influences can still be seen in Western Africa today.
How can religion influence culture?
Religion sort of brings people together, like groups them into, unifies them.
And a lot of people base their moral compass on religions.
In my family, food is very important in a typical Jewish family.
Religion tells you how to live, how to eat, how to dress.
People have cross necklaces.
I still think a religion affects so many people on such a personal level that it's going to affect how we view things culturally.
The savannas of West Africa were home to two of Africa's greatest ancient trading empires. Both grew up along the banks of the Niger River in the modern nation of Mali. The first of these empires was called Ghana. Ancient Ghana built its power on the rich deposits of gold that can still be found in the region. Ghana grew rich by controlling a lucrative gold and salt trade between the people of West Africa and those of North Africa. After ruling much of West Africa for over 700 years, the Ghana Empire was defeated by Muslim Arabs in 1076. When Ghana fell, the valuable caravan routes it had protected became dangerous and trade suffered. But another empire arose in the grasses of the savannas. This new Mali Empire was founded in 1235 by the young king Sundiata, whose name means hungering lion. Sundiata recaptured the gold-producing areas of West Africa and re-established the gold and salt trade. Profits from trade made Mali's emperors rich and powerful. Mali's most famous emperor was Mansa Musa, who came to power around 1312 and ruled the empire for 25 years. Mansa Musa was a devout Muslim. Islam had been introduced to West Africa by Arab traders about 1,000 years earlier, and it spread along trade routes. Mansa Musa was one of the first rulers to make Islam his empire's official religion. But Mansa Musa wasn't content to simply practice Islam in Mali. He wanted to make the pilgrimage to the holy city of Mecca in modern Saudi Arabia. This pilgrimage, called the Hajj, is one of the 5 pillars of Islam, or duties that a faithful Muslim should perform. In 1324, Mansa Musa set out for Mecca. But he didn't make the journey as a humble pilgrim. Mansa Musa turned it into a royal occasion. He brought thousands of officials and slaves with him. He loaded more than 80 camels with sacks of gold and dressed himself and his servants in rich silks and jewelry. It's said that Mansa Musa and his followers spent and gave away gold so generously that they upset many of the local economies they passed through. They left behind so much gold in Cairo, Egypt, that gold became almost commonplace there and lost much of its value. By the time Mansa Musa completed his pilgrimage, the incredible wealth of his empire had become widely known. Mali's standing in the world soared, and even more trade and wealth came to its market cities. Mansa Musa used his wealth to spread the religion of Islam. He brought Egyptian artists to Mali to build fabulous mosques. He also brought Muslim scholars to teach the basic beliefs of Islam. He had a new palace built in Timbuktu. This city had served as a bustling center of the gold and salt trade for centuries. Merchants traveled long, dangerous roads to gather in Timbuktu to buy gold or slaves in exchange for Saharan salt and North African cloth and horses. Under Mansa Musa, the city was transformed into a center of Islamic culture and teaching. Soon, Timbuktu overflowed with students and scholars from around the Muslim world. But it wasn't just Islam that the scholars of Timbuktu studied. Doctors there pioneered new operations on the human eye, and mathematicians reworked ideas from India to create the Arabic numerals that form the basis of today's numbering system. Mansa Musa had transformed Mali's wealth into lasting monuments, and a commodity even more valuable than gold: knowledge.
You've been given all the information. Now it's your turn to discuss the questions. Take a moment to talk about the following.
How can trade affect a growing civilization?
How can wealth help make leaders and their ideas more popular?
We hope you've enjoyed this assignment discovery journey into the empires of early Africa. If you'd like to learn more about what you've just seen, go online or check out these books at your local library.
That's a wrap for today, but tune in next time as we unravel some of the secrets of ancient Greece and Rome. We'll watch the birth of ancient Greece and Rome, experience the death of the Roman city of Pompeii, and see how the young Byzantine Empire kept the Roman heritage alive. Join us next time for Enduring Influence, Rome, Greece, and Byzantium, here on Assignment Discovery.